What's going on, guys? It's GBP baby. Welcome back to another weekly review. I hope everybody's doing well, and let's get straight into things. So this week we do have quite a lot of high impact news starting from Tuesday. This is also it is also Fed interest rate decisions this week, which I didn't even realize. So there's going to be a lot of volatility to expect, but nonetheless it should be quite an exciting week, especially considering we've been in pretty much consolidation since 3 weeks ago now. So this was the previous week that's just gone. The week before that and the week before that, you can see we've been staying within side of this range between this low and between this high. You can see our price has been staying within that range. So it'll be nice to see if this week can give us some expansion outside of that range, and we can start to head and continue in the direction that we're anticipating. So generally speaking, my drawn liquidity is down here on the much higher time frames. So I do want to see price reach down there eventually, not necessarily next week, but we need to understand and realize that this is where the main drawn liquidity is. So I will just get this delineated as sell side liquidity, and weekly, this is weekly sell side liquidity because it's on the weekly chart. And then more closely and more, the lower hanging fruit is definitely here. So I do want to see this get traded to this week. And then also what I'm paying attention to is going to be the wick from this week that's just gone. So if we look at this long wick right here, when price creates long wicks like these, we need to remember to treat them like gaps. And that means I'm going to be looking at the 50% level, which is what we call consequent encroachment, because as far as I'm concerned, price should be able to respect that 50% level. And if anything, if it does trade to it, use it as a point of resistance. And then on the lower time frames, we'll be looking around that range to try and identify some potential PD arrays that it can key off on the lower time frames. So let's get this delineated like so. We'll make it dashed, we'll make it red. Now let's make it blue. And then I'm going to put weekly consequent encroachment. And now we have a range as to where we want to see price trade. We know that this is going to be the highest we want to allow price trade, and we know that this is where we want to see price trade too. And once it gets there, ideally we can see if it can continue to run lower. But generally speaking, this is my first target for price. So yeah, very interesting week last week. You can see we traded up. This is a rejection block level right here, and you can see our prices continued to respect this. And you'll also see that we respected the 50% level of that rejection block, like so. One thing to study here as well, which is very interesting, is look at how we treat the 25% level. So if we drag this 25% level here, first we traded to that 25% level before this wick even formed, and then after we traded to the 50% level. I don't actually know what's going on here, but I know ICT spoke about this. It's very sensitive, and maybe this is something we can study together in a separate video if I find the time. But nonetheless, it's interesting and something we should definitely consider paying attention to. So let's now drop down to the daily and take a closer look at price. So you'll see our price traded back up into the rejection block level. Hopefully you watched last week's videos, you'll know I called this to be a point of resistance. I was expecting Wednesday to give us that turnaround in the market, but nonetheless we got it on Thursday absolutely gorgeously, and then we got a continuation just as expected on the following day. So it's not the cleanest price action, a lot of back and forth, but nonetheless, one thing I do want to bring our attention to now, let's get rid of this, we don't need that, is an inversion fair value gap. So between this high and this low, you can see our price is traded below it and closed below it, also gapping below it, meaning that if price does manage to return back into this range, we expect this to act as a bearish fair value gap. So let's look at this marked out as a daily inversion fair value gap. And now we know again, if price shouldn't need to come back above here because it's clearly bearish. We've turned around at our rejection block level. We have a bearish bias on the higher time frame. And like I said, any kind of retracement into that range, we should expect price to turn at it. Another thing to take note of is this long wick from Wednesday from CPI. If we look at the range of that 25% level should also be quite sensitive to price as well. So I will take a close look at that as we drop down to the lower time frames. But generally speaking, I'll likely be letting Monday just trade out. I always let Monday trade, see where it takes us, and I'm looking ideally for the week to form classically in that it creates some kind of high and then some kind of low, and then turns and starts to create the low. Another thing to take note of, this daily inversion fair value gap can even extend into here because this is the first gap, and you see how price is gyrating around this. Every time it goes up and above it, it should act bullishly. That failed here, which also indicated to us that this was likely to happen. because if this was going to act bullishly, this fair value gap, once we were at this point, so on Monday, once we closed above that, if this was going to act bullishly, this wouldn't have happened, but it did, and then it supported our bias, and then voila, we're now below it. So yes, some food for thought right there. But nonetheless, let's now drop down to the 4 hour and hopefully we can see what's going on. So we've traded down into what looks like a bullish order block right here. Have we traded to the 50% level off it? Yeah, so volume is respecting the 50% level off it for now. That's completely fine. Ideally, again, Monday, Tuesday, I'm looking to see if we can see some potential rallying. We do have a breaker low here, high, low, higher high up here, and then price is broken lower. So this last down close candle is a breaker. So I'm happy for price to return back into that, and that rallying we're looking for will support that, won't it? So it'll be nice to see if price can start to rally on Monday, maybe into Tuesday, to try and create some kind of high up here. So I will be looking at this swing high specifically for buy side liquidity, because there'll be buy stops above there, so I want to see that get grabbed. And then once we're in this premium, I'll be paying very close attention to this breaker range right here. So let's get that marked out as a 4 hour breaker. So now I know that once price is traded above this level, I know that it's trading inside a breaker. So we'll be anticipating price to be able to pull out of that. Whether that happens on Monday or Tuesday, I don't know, but that is what I'm going to be looking for. Let's drop down to the 1 hour. Again, not the cleanest, but if we assume that this is a reversal, like a short-term reversal here, and we are going to start retracing, then this up close candle should be able to provide support. So moving into Monday, if we stay above this level right here, and price finds support inside of this last up close candle, then I'm happy to go, wow, you're not really supposed to trade against the curve, so I don't suggest doing this, but what I'm saying is that if it provides support, I'd expect price to be able to trade up into the buy stops here, fill this gap. This is a volume imbalance, so there's, you know, a draw there. Price will draw to that very aggressively, very aggressively, and then again I want to see if it can reach up into that 4 hour breaker and that wick low I was talking about. Yes, I've marked out the weekly consequent encroachment over here, and yes, I've worked out the daily inversion fair value gap, but it's this premium in general which I'm looking for price to get to. And as you can see, there's a fair value gap right here. That would be nice to see if price can trade into that. So let's get that marked out in orange. But this is all assuming we find support inside of this breaker, which would be nice to see. So yeah, I'm going to just let Monday trade as per usual. I don't really trade Mondays, but generally speaking, I want to see, can we draw up higher, because that would be really supportive of our bias. So that's going to be everything on dollar. I hope that all makes sense. Defo, turn post notifications on. Turn post notifications on so you don't miss Monday's video tomorrow. Let's now head on to GBP USD. Very interesting to see how GBP reached our target last week. Well, how it was treating our target. You can see price failed to trade right through it, but we filled the fair value gap nonetheless. But anyway, let's clear all the drawings. Let's start on the weekly. And obviously, if we're expecting a down close week on dollar, we want to see pound trade on higher. So where are we looking for pound to trade? Well, generally speaking, I'm looking at this buy side liquidity up here. And then the more near term, it would be right here. And then similar to dollar, we need to look at how price has been behaving. So we traded down to the 50% level off this fair value gap and came off of it. Volume is still staying above it, meaning that the lowest I want to see price trade now is going to be 50% off this wick. Any lower than that, I will be very suspicious, you know, and price could get quite messy. But we need to remember it is interest rate decisions this week, so we might find that there's a lot of manipulation to the point where they are, you know, burying price before they send it higher. But remember, our higher time frame bias is bullish, so we need to keep that in mind when we are seeing price fall, because it's likely we will see a lot of downwards price action and manipulation in that direction before price does want to expand to the upside, assuming we're on the right side of the market. So that 50% level we're going to be paying close attention to on the lower time frames. Let's now drop down, and also I want to bring our attention to this, just because it's a weekly high, so it's very significant for price. So let's go down to the daily. And you'll see there's a nice bullish order block right here. So this is going to be very sensitive to price, the opening of it. Let's get that marked out like so. I'll make that black, and we can put daily bullish order block. Move that to the right, center it. So if price manages to trade into that, I'll be looking for potential long-in opportunities, expecting us to manage to reach into our weekly high over here. This is also a breaker, this last up close candle, so again it'll be nice to see some kind of downwards price action as we run into Wednesday and Thursday to expect a reversal. Inflation rate, and then obviously Fed interest rate all on Wednesday. So we do need to be careful as we approach Wednesday, but like I said, ideally we'll be in some kind of discount that can help set us up. Let's assume we don't trade lower first at the beginning of the week and we actually trade higher and we find ourselves running out buy side liquidity. Then and only then would I expect interest rate decisions and the high impact news that pound has, interest rates for pound on Thursday. Only then would I expect interest rate decisions to send price lower. So let's say Monday, Tuesday we're rallying instead of falling. That means that when we get to that time of the week, it's likely that interest rate decisions will send it lower, and then later on it will turn. So that's something we just have to wait for. Obviously that Monday and Tuesday trade, but generally speaking that's how I'm approaching the week, and again that's why I don't tend to trade Mondays. But it was nice to see we ran out these buy stops very nicely, traded up, bearish order block, traded into that wick, and you can see our price is kind of consolidating. So we might find that price continues to consolidate a little bit. There's an inversion fair value gap right here. So if this continues to provide resistance, that should help us with our expectation of seeing price trade on lower into what? A breaker, low, high, lower low, clear expansion to the upside. So it'd be nice to see if price can trade into this up close candle right here. And once it gets down there, again, that's where I would want to be accumulating, assuming price does want to trade higher. But again, let Monday trade. But that's what I'm paying close attention to. So let's get that last up close candle specifically drawn out. To be honest, it's more like this. Let's go to the 4 hour actually and then take a closer look. So the last up close candle is in this range, and then we drop down to the 1 hour and we should be able to find the breaker. So you can see it's quite consolidated. I do like the look of this, purely because this is more the fact that this caused this and then price traded higher. I see this as the more significant breaker as opposed to this. It's hard to explain why, but generally speaking, in this circumstance, I'd be looking at these up close candles purely because it was this which caused which created the bullish order block. And then we traded through it. So I'm looking for price to get down here, and also you can see it lines up nicely with the bullish order block on the daily as well. But again, let Monday trade, and again, if this manages to provide resistance, that will be very supportive. If we get above this, say on Monday or Tuesday, then like I said, it might be the very opposite, and we find that by Wednesday, Thursday, price does want to then pull down into this. So it's, although direction wise, on a Sunday, we never know. We just have to wait, and that's why I don't like Mondays too much until it's like Monday afternoon or even Monday London session. But my point is, we have the PD arrays marked out. So if this PD array gets traded to first, then we can expect this to be traded to later. Or if this gets traded to first, then we can expect this to be traded to later. Assuming, time of day, things are in line, and the daily is also lined up nicely as well. But yeah. That's how I'm looking at pounds. So that's going to be everything on GBP USD. Let's now finish up on Euro USD. We're going to start here on the weekly as well. Same thing. If we're expecting a down close week on dollar, we want to see an up close week on euro. Euro looks like it's got some high impact news. Again, we've got buy side liquidity here, and then it'll be here as well. Now, Euro's been a little bit weaker, so we do need to be careful and shy off that. It was nice to see that Euro filled this fair value gap in last week and came out of it. This is supportive of our bias. Again, I'll be looking at the 50% level of this wick. Now, the longer the wick, usually the more sensitive the 50% level. And when I say longer, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a certain level. But when it's a clear long wick like this, especially on a weekly time frame, and it's a clear long wick, you'll find they are much more sensitive and more reactive to price, which is why when it comes to consequent encroachments, it's better to apply them on your weekly so you can see how price is acting once they get to them. And we'll see that this week, hopefully. So definitely, again, turn on that post notification. But let's go down to the daily and take a closer look. Beautiful expansion to the upside. There is an inversion fair value gap, But again, I've just said this, euro is a little bit weaker right now, so I wouldn't be surprised if this failed and price managed to get down into this quite a deep discount. So I'm going to allow for that. Not really much here on the 4 hour. Price isn't the cleanest right now. Again, breaker, low, high, lower low. This is the last low for that expansion. So we're looking at this up close candle again. Nice fair value gap down there. So it's not like there's not imbalances in the discount down here for price to trade to. It'll be nice to see if it can get to it. It's just once it gets to it, can price turn at it? And what time is it trading into it? If it's trading into this at 8:30, bang on news, that can line us up nicely for potential longs for the rest of the week. So we need to be wary of that. Another thing that could take place, which is what I was saying in GBP USD, is that we could run this buy side liquidity first. We could be rallying all the beginning of the week, and then price will reverse. Regardless, our PD array should be getting traded to. So it's just a matter of which is going to happen first, allowing Monday to trade, and also the right time of day of when these trades are likely to form. So here's the 1 hour, not the cleanest, and you'll see there's a breaker here. That's what I'm paying more attention to be honest, which is just below that fair value gap. So again, it'll be nice to see if price can get down into there, and then again, depending on time of day and how we respond to it, that may set us up nicely for some potential longs, assuming price wants to hold. But remember, this is all based off the higher time frame. We want to see it up close week. If this gives way, so if we get down here and prices keep trading on lower, whole nother story. And then it's not like these relative equal lows wouldn't be a nice target for price. They're very relative, and it's a nice pool of liquidity down there. So price could easily very well get down there. And the only time I'd expect that to potentially happen is, like I was saying, if we find that we're running this buy side liquidity early, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and we're still in a nice premium, then I'm like, okay, it's probably going to just, it's going to tank and bury, which is completely fine. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting week. Very difficult right now, but nonetheless, should be very interesting. Hope you found this insightful. Don't forget to drop a like, drop a comment, smash subscribe, join the mailing list, join the Discord. And yeah, I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Peace.